Hello, my name is Ivan Rodriguez, and welcome to 8ish Minutes. Today we'll be discussing about the Home Park community and the gang culture that have surrounded it for nearly 30 to 40 years. Today I'm going to be talking to my cousin Eric Oyola and my father, George Ivan Rodriguez, who was a gangbanger for the Insane Spanish Cobras from 1978 to 1998. Hello, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Ivan.
Okay, great. So, before we get into the meat and potatoes of why you're here, I want to ask you first, describe your childhood when you came here from Puerto Rico to Chicago when you were 8 years old.
Well, I was born in Rio Piedras, Puerto Rico in 1965. We lived in Rio Piedras till right before we came to the United States, which was in 1973. We moved to North Avenue in Spalding. And North Avenue in Spalding was what you call the Puerto Rican neighborhood. And when we moved there, we came to realize that it was a lot of gangs. It did caught my attention, but I was too young, so that's where the first times that I started seeing how Chicago was and how the gangs were.
How are you, sir?
How you doing?
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So, 15 years ago, you left this neighborhood. How was your daily life as a teenager growing up in a neighborhood that was infested with gangs and basically dangerous to even leave your house?
I remember there was a community basketball team that was playing, and it was like in a tournament, and there was some sort of like fight between the two team members while they were playing. They were talking smack back and forth, and then eventually one guy swung on the other guy, and they started fighting a little bit, and then the one guy goes, "I'm gonna go to my trunk, I'll be right back." And you know, yeah, and the car was right there. It was like a bomb went off. Everybody just scattered, you know.
Yeah.
People left their bicycles. People just left everything they had.
They left their bicycles.
They just threw it. Yeah, they just ran. Everybody just like scattered out. And the guy that he had gotten into a fight with was one of the head guys of the Cobras. So they believed him when he said that, "I'm going to my trunk right now.
Yeah.
You know, I'll be right back."
Yeah.
So it was just
no one wanted to figure out.
Nobody wanted to figure out what was in the trunk.
Yeah.
It was living on edge. You know, anytime you kind of walk down the street, and the police officers too. You know, every cop thought you were a gangbanger.
Yeah.
So you know, you could just be walking down the street with your guys, and they just pull you over and say, "Sit down on the curb."
Yeah.
They take off your hat. You know, take off your shoes, and they could search you, do whatever they want to you, because you were just a kid.
Yeah.
And you just have to deal with it. And that was that happened all the time.
People would see me and would pick on me. And I remember telling people like, "Wait a minute, you know, I don't even know how to speak English. What do you mean?" Because they said, "Oh, that you're a gangster, that you hang out by Simon's Park." I'm like, I'm 10, 11 years old. What are you talking about? I don't even speak English. So it got to a point that some of my brother's older friends used to take me to Humboldt Park. And we would run into these kids, and they would let me fight with them.
Yeah.
When I realized that they were going to pick on those guys that used to pick on me, was when I first got introduced to a gang.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't about, like people say, about a snake or a cobra or green and black. It was about the people. I remember the people that were picking on me. And it was tough. So I knew I could defend myself. So at that time, it was almost like a blessing to meet people that didn't like the people that I grew up at, where I grew up at, and they were going over there like every weekend, fighting, messing up their gang walls, because at that time the gang walls were pretty, it was a big thing. Every neighborhood had a big wall with their emblems and their gang signs and people's names.
Marking their territory?
Exactly. And so that's what I ended up doing for about, I don't know, I say about 15 years, 18 years around there. I mean, I got very involved in it. You know, I mean, you know, I remember the kids hanging out in the corner. And it's funny because if I saw a movie or what could have happened to somebody that lived that kind of life, maybe I would have not lived that life. But as time evolved, I was that one kid hanging out in the corner with colors, with girls, drinking beer, smoking weed, making money. I mean, it got to a point that at 16 years old, I moved out of my mother's house. At 16 years old, I had my own apartment. At 17, I had 2 cars. At 18, I didn't graduate high school because I had to make money and I had to just do the things that I was doing. You know, I regret a lot of things. I'm not ashamed of the life that I lived because that molded me to the human being and the man that I am today.
Yeah.
I got involved with drugs. I started doing a lot of drugs, and that was my downfall.
Yeah.
So it got to a point that I lost everything. I got kicked out from my house. And I remember the reason I got out of that life was because I was getting drugged out with a friend of mine in a car, and I fell asleep. And in my sleep, I had a dream. And I've told you this before, but I had a dream of my kids, which is Ashley and yourself. You guys were in a corner. You guys were little kids. I think you were like 4 years old, and she was like 9 or 10, because she's like 5, 6 years older than you, so she was like 11 or something. And I remember that you guys were looking at me, and I was super dirty and dusty. And I've never been super dirty and dusty, but I saw myself. But the weird thing about my dream, that I was inside you guys, looking at me, seeing me, and feeling what you guys saw and felt. And I was devastated.
Yeah.
I was devastated. I got up, and that was 15 years ago. So that's actually how long I've been. Not only have I been sober for 15 years, but in 15 years I've managed to do things that I didn't do in the last 35. And it was a blessing. It was a blessing because I realized the people that I hurt, and it just killed me inside. And when I had that dream, I didn't have a pain in my heart. It was like in my soul. And that was the last day that I stopped hanging out, doing drugs. And so, you know, a lot of people say that their mom and their dad molded them to be the way they are. And today I can say that my kids helped me. And that's why I'm the way I am today. And I think that life that I live, even though that I have regrets, I wasn't ashamed, because me living that life is the reason that I am the dad that I am today.
In 1979, a year after my father joined the Spanish Cobras, there was 856 murders in the city. In 2014, there were 432, which was a 50% decrease, which has shown that despite all of the gangs in the city, violence has gone down. Today, my father is the manager of a highly successful company in Chicago, and 15 years ago, he opened an AA group to help alcoholics, drug addicts, and gangbangers able to turn their lives around. Being there on a weekend basis is helping learn the struggles and consequences of joining a gang, also in getting into drugs and getting into alcohol. I'm proud to say that he is my father, and I've learned a lot about him. My name is Ivan Rodriguez. Thank you for watching.